Fing, Chapter 16. Suspicious Droppings. Who was the phantom custard cream thief? There may have been no custard cream biscuits left in the tin, but there was a suspicious trail of steaming droppings leading from it. Droppings that looked strangely custardy and creamy. That's right, if you can remember, in the last chapter, all the custard creams had gone missing. The droppings led all the way from the clearing through some very jungly parts of the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle to the mouth of a cave. Mr. Meek grimaced. Oh no, he was afraid of the dark. Going down into the vaults of the library was bad enough, but this was infinitely more terrifying. There was a long list of things that gave him the willies. Things that give Mr. Meek the willies. Washing up gloves, Brussels sprouts, vending machines, whisks, umbrellas, clowns, brown bananas, stair lifts, pips, coffee flavoured chocolates. I think that gives me the willies too. Darts players, balloon animals, bubble wrap, lampshades, walking baths, licorice, men with hairy toes, women with hairy toes, and anyone with the name Colin. Keeping in mind his daughter's fury if he didn't return home with a Fing, Mr. Meek took a deep breath and stepped inside the dark, damp cave. His footsteps echoed in the blackness. "Hello?" he called out. "Hello?" a voice came back. The man was spooked out of his skin. To hide his fear, Mr. Meek put on his bravest, boomiest voice. "Who's there?" he demanded. "Who's there?" was the defiant reply. "I asked first. I asked first." "No, you didn't. I did." "No, you didn't. I did." "You are being ridiculous," he shouted into the darkness. "You are being ridiculous," came the reply. "No, I am not. No, I am not. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Show yourself. Show yourself. You go first. You go first. Stop repeating everything I say. Stop repeating everything I say. Hang on. Hang on. Have you guessed what's happening? That's right. Am I talking to my own echo? There was silence for a moment before Mr. Meek's voice bounced back. Yes. Now he was seriously spooked. Father fumbled in what was left of his pocket for a box of matches. Trembling, he lit one. With the flicker of light from the match, he stretched out the darkest corners of the cave. Something was moving. Something small, something furry, something fingy. Chapter 17. Wiggled, waggled and woggled. When the light illuminated whatever it was moving around in the shadows, it let out a low growl. Grrr. Like most people, Mr. Meek thought of himself as someone who was good with animals, even though he'd once been bitten on the bottom by a horse, a pantomime horse. Thinking he could tame this creature, he tiptoed forwards and crouched down, striking another match. He had his first good look at it. Bingo! This thing was indeed a Fing. It was exactly as the Monsterpedia had described. The creature was no bigger than a tennis ball. It was round and furry and moved about by rolling. 2 little holes were visible, one on either side of a large eye, which swivelled round to look at Mr. Meek. One hole must be its mouth, and the other its bottom. However, despite these 2 holes performing wildly different functions, they were completely indistinguishable from each other. That means that you can't tell the difference between one or the other. Inexplicably, Mr. Meek began speaking to it in a baby voice, as if an animal were more likely to understand you if you spoke to it as if you still wore nappies. Hello, little Fing, or should I say Fing? Do you want to come home with me? Cooed Mr. Meek. Grrr, came the reply. Despite this not sounding anything like a yes, he reached out his hand to stroke the animal. This proved to be a mistake. A big mistake. Enormous. Gargantuan. Humongous. Let's just agree, it was big. Grrr! Snap! Ah! Screamed Father. This thing had bitten onto his index finger, and it wasn't letting go. The pain was eye-watering. Yow! Mr. Meek's face had turned scarlet, and his hair was standing up on end. The man wiggled and waggled and woggled his finger as hard as he could. Get off me! The creature just sank its teeth in deeper. Its eyes were narrowed, as if it was going in for the kill. No, 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 no. Mr. Meek hobbled across the cave and tried to whack the creature off him on the stone entrance. Whack! Whack! Still, the creature sank its teeth deeper and deeper into the man's finger. God, water! He exclaimed. I bet it hates water. As fast as he could, Mr. Meek staggered towards a lake. Without thinking what might be in there, because this was the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle, remember, he leaped in. To his surprise, Mr. Meek could stand up. He was up to his armpits in water. He began giving the Fing an ultimatum. Right, that's it. That's really it. I need my finger back. It's one of my favourites. I need it for all kinds of things. Turning the pages of a book, scratching my bottom, picking my nose. I am sorry, Fing, but you give me no choice. With that, the man took charge. Finally, he found the hero he'd always thought might be just lurking beneath his meek exterior. At last, he was the most manliest man in the whole of Mandom. Yes. He lifted his finger high in the air to savour the moment before plunging it deep under the water. Splish! Mr. Meek held it under, sure that the Fing would release its grip. Smiling to himself, he waited and waited and waited and waited some more. Then the strangest thing happened. Bubbles began floating to the surface. Blub, 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 blub. The bubbles were huge, brown and foul-smelling, eye-wateringly, nose-ticklingly, stomach-turningly stinky. In a word, pongy-wongy-woo. It was a very different stench from the creamy custardy droppings. Mr. Meek held his breath and peered down into the dark water. His feet weren't touching the lake bed after all. They were touching something big and grey and alive. Blub, 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 blub. Still more lethal smelling bubbles burst on the surface. It was only then that Mr. Meek realised that he was in fact standing on an animal. Not just any animal. Oh no. A honk-opotamus. Chapter 18. Double Trouble. Now, of course, the important thing to remember with honk-opotamuses is that a bubble is just the beginning. A bubble means there is a lot more to come. Mr. Meek looked down to see a huge jet of air shooting out from between his feet. The creature powered through the water like a torpedo. Whoosh! Despite hitting 100 miles an hour, the Fing was still not letting go of Father's finger. If you thought things couldn't get any worse, then think again. In fright at all the commotion, a flock of one-winged birds took off from a tree in which they had been nesting. Having just one wing each, not between them, that would be silly. They spun through the air, whacking the poor man in the face. Whack, whack, whack. Ow! Before they nose-dived into the water. This served to continue the chain reaction. The one-winged birds plunging into the lake attracted the attention of another creature lurking in the depths, the two-headed croco. It also had its own entry in the Monsterpedia. The croco was not unlike a crocodile, but instead of having a head and a tail, it had two heads and no tail. Two huge hungry mouths to feed meant double trouble. There you see, there's the croco. The main drawback of having two heads and no tail was that the creature was directionless. One head wanted to go one way and the other way. Still, Mr. Meek looked like a tasty treat to this creature, so the croco thrashed around in pursuit, both sets of jaws snapping at the man as if he were dinner. Snap, snap, snap. What with the Fing biting his finger, the honk-opotamus blasting bottom bubbles from below, the one-winged birds dive-bombing from above, and of course the croco snapping at his heels, Mr. Meek was beginning to think that this might be the end. Help! He cried. Please, can someone take the Monsterpedia book back to the library? There is a fee to pay. Shouting didn't help one bit. In fact, it made things worse, much worse. The shout woke up another animal. Not just any animal. Oh no. Mr. Meek had woken up the deadliest animal in the world. Not sure what that will be, but we'll find out next time. Okay, and in the meantime, if you're enjoying the story of the Fing, then maybe you could make something like this. This is something that one of my children made. This is a diorama. You see, and that's the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle that she's made. And you can see the cave at the back. And you can see the Fing. So you could make a diorama of one of your favourite stories. This is just made out of an old shoebox. Lots of fun to do with your parents. Okay, see you next time.